friends, welcome to Freedom Homestead. My name is Tangi and welcome to Fermented February. Today I am putting together for you a sourdough starter. If you are here looking for the Wellness Wednesday video, that will come out later today. So I wanted to do sourdough starter for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted to show you that it's not difficult. There are a lot of instructions out there. A lot of them talk about ratios and hydration percentages, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. I use Amy Fuel from the Fuel Homestead's recipe. That's what I've used every single time I've ever made a sourdough starter, and it turns out perfectly every single time. Super simple, 2 ingredients. You just need a little bit of patience, a good vessel to put this in, which can be a mason jar. Once your sourdough starter is ready, then you have a wonderful addition to your homestead kitchen. Okay, so we're gonna get started. All you need is unbleached flour and filtered water, and that's it. The reason why I say filtered is because you don't want water that has chlorine in it, because this is a process where bacteria and yeast must cohabitate and thrive. You don't want chlorine. It's also why it's important to use unbleached flour. It doesn't have to be wheat flour. Some people use einkorn, some people use spelt. And there are a lot of gluten-free sourdough recipes out there, but I have never used those, so I am not the one to ask about those. I just use regular unbleached all-purpose flour. All right, so let's get to the kitchen. I'm going to link Amy Fuel's recipe down below. All right, so let's get started. All right, so before we start talking about what's going into the jar, let's talk about the jar that I'm using. So in Amy's instructions, she says to use a 1 quart mason jar, which I have done that plenty of times. And you just cover it with a tea towel with a rubber band, and that's to keep dust, fruit flies, things like that out of your ferment. But you want gas to be able to escape from your sourdough. So this jar that I bought, it is from Walmart. It's a 1/2 gallon, and the lid that comes with it does not have a gasket. So it's doing everything that it needs to. CO2 can escape, nothing can get in. So the ingredients for your sourdough starter is 1 cup of unbleached flour. And like I said before, you can also use whole wheat flour, you can use rye flour. The main objective is that your flour is not overly processed, it's not bleached. And so as long as it's an unbleached flour, you should be in good shape. Then the recipe calls for 1/2 to 1 cup of water. And as I mentioned before, you want to make sure that your water does not have chlorine in it, because you want the bacteria and the yeast to thrive and you don't want to kill it. The reason why she is not specific on the amount of water that you use is because you are looking more for consistency than you are for measurements. And this is also something that Lisa Bass from Farmhouse on Boone talks about, and Amy also says this: you want your starter to have the consistency of a thick pancake batter. Because Amy's directions are broken up by days, and sometimes I forget and I didn't want to overcomplicate things, I actually used a permanent marker and wrote day 1, the date, so on and so forth. And that really helped me trying to figure out which day I was on. Sad but true. The permanent marker can be wiped off using rubbing alcohol or even a Mr. Clean eraser. You want to put it in a place out of direct sunlight, but in an area that is warm. On days 2 and 3, you're going to stir your mixture, and then you're going to add 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour and a 1/2 cup of cold water every 12 hours or twice a day. Again, you're looking more for consistency than you are for measurement. So just kind of go by feel, what looks like a thick pancake batter. An important thing to note here, if you are using a quart-sized mason jar, is that if your jar gets more than half full, then you're going to end up having some of your sourdough starter spill over. So Amy recommends pouring off about a cup of the excess And you can use the discard at this stage to give to your chickens, or you can put it in the garbage. If your ferment is older, there are lots of discard recipes out there. In fact, I'm going to share one with you here at the end. All right, good morning, friends. It is day 3, and look at that. That is a thing of beauty. Lots of bubbling action. Smells really nice, a little sour, a little fruity. So we are going to do a feeding, but since we are this full, I think I'm going to go ahead and discard some of it, and I will give the discard to the chickens. And yeah, and then we're going to do another feeding. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I was filming, and when I went to get the camera, it was not on. So what I just did was I scooped out a half a cup of the starter. It was the first time that I've discarded any. It depends on the size of your container that you're starting in. So as to whether or not you want to discard it, and I probably didn't even have to, but I just went ahead and did it. So I scooped out a half a cup of starter, and that will go to my chickens. And I fed it again with 3/4 cup of flour and a half a cup of water, and I just stirred it in really good. You can see it's already bubbling, so this is going really, really well. All right, friends, it is day 4, and as you can see, we have a little bit of hooch. We've got lots of bubbly action. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna stir the hooch back into the starter. See that I've got some liquid that is formed over here? That is what is referred to as hooch. It's just some of the alcohols that are taking place during the fermentation process, and it just floats up on top. Some people strain it off. I'm just gonna stir it right back in. Look at these gorgeous bubbles. I love it. I'm gonna stir it in. I'm gonna scoop out half a cup of starter, give that to the chickens, and then we're going to feed it. Now that we're on day 4, we're only gonna feed it one time today, and then we're gonna feed it one time tomorrow, and then we're going to make something with it. On days 4 and 5, you're going to stir your mixture down, add 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour and your half cup of cold water, remembering to keep the consistency like a thick pancake batter. Be sure to pour off any excess in case your starter expands. You don't want it to overflow. Then, if you haven't already, it's time to transfer your starter into its permanent home, whether it's a larger jar like what I have, or even a sourdough crock. Just be sure that you're not using plastic or metal. All right, who is ready for some sourdough pancakes? The recipe that I'm using is something that you can use unfed starter or active starter. This is something that you would use your discard for. I will link the recipe that I am using down in the description box below. I chose this recipe because it's quick and it's not intimidating at all. I mean, it's pancakes. For this recipe, you need 1 cup of sourdough starter, 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 1/4 cup of milk, 1 large egg, 3 tablespoons of melted coconut oil. I use melted butter, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And like I said before, I will have the link to this recipe down below. One thing that I wanted to be sure to mention is that if you are not going to be using your sourdough starter anytime soon, maybe you're going on vacation, or maybe you just don't want to use it at the moment, don't worry, you don't have to kill it. You can just put it in the refrigerator, and that will slow the fermentation process. I've heard of some people who have left their starter in the refrigerator for a month before they took it out and fed it, and it reactivated just fine. while my griddle is heating up for the pancakes, I decided to go ahead and feed my starter. This is something that I will do daily as often as I plan to use it. Then I'm scooping out the pancake batter in 1/3 cup increments. And then you turn your pancakes as bubbles form on the top and the edges get nice and golden brown. All right, I already know it's good because I had one earlier. Very good. All right, J-Dub, you want to bite?
Yes. That is good. It's definitely a lot different flavor. I like these better.
All right, so hopefully this gives you confidence to show that it's very simple to start your own sourdough starter at home. You only need a couple of ingredients and a little bit of time. And there are so many different things that you can make with it. As you can see, the discard, you can even use, you don't have to put that in the garbage. You can also feed it to your chickens. They really like it. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out the rest of the collaboration, and don't forget to comment on every video so that way you increase your chances of winning the fermentation kit. All right, so until next time, remember to be vigilant, be prayerful, and be prepared, and we'll catch you on the next one. God bless. Bye, y'all.